So can we get third parties in on this? If
I didn't
say I don't hold on. I'm trying to get third. I'm trying to get third. I'm trying to get third parties into this. If he makes the claim that I refuse to debate him because he's bad faith, and I make the claim that I refuse to debate him on one topic out of everything, one topic, and I know he's seen clips of me say this, one topic out of everything, but I'll debate him on anything else. Do you think that that's a fair representation to say that I won't debate him because he's bad faith?
Yes.
No, I wasn't asking you. I was asking Destiny and John.
Because the Uyghur genocide is the single biggest point of contention you've consistently brought up in relation to me.
It's not it's not just that. I've stated multiple times before inside of my chat room. It was after you had your first. I think it was like the very first time I like almost ever in depth covered you was when you had that conversation in regards to Hassan being a fake Marxist. And I was like, you know what? I think that I could have a long-form discussion with you about why his brand of communism or socialism is better than Marxist-Leninism.
Compensates for his mic.
Okay, let's do it right now.
Mic gain setting ducker Z.
Okay, I think that dictatorships are unproductive for individuals to feel self-actualized in the voting process and therefore feel alienated from their collective power.
Wait, so let's repeat that pile of garbage you just said.
Okay.
So I think dictatorships are... Go on.
Okay, so I think that dictatorships are not productive because people feel alienated based on their lack of ability to create substantial change inside of their communities through voting or what have you. One-party states and dictatorships are not a good way of doing that because people feel alienated from the process of decision-making in their country.
Okay, we can actually test this.
Yep.
How much power do people in China have to actually meaningfully change and have the government respond to their actual needs and wants and desires relative to the United States?
Well, why do we have to do it specifically with just the United States? I mean, we could do it with, like, for instance, South Korea?
Okay, let's do South Korea.
Okay. Which one do you think has a better standard of care? Health care? China or South Korea?
Korea is a more developed country in general.
Okay. So
what's the relevance of that point?
You said you were willing to do it in reference to South Korea.
China is a country with 1.4 billion people with huge geographical.
Okay, so you said you were willing to do it in reference to South Korea.
I am.
Okay,
South Korea having a better standard of living isn't evidence of the fact that people have more decision making or more real power relative to the government. How do you
think a one-party state is going to fare when it comes towards individuals feeling like they are alienated or not alienated from being able to vote for the people that represent them?
Not alienated.
Why?
Very easily, because the single-party state is literally the Communist Party of China, whose sole mission is to do nothing but serve the Chinese people.
Why could I not say the same thing about the Conservative Party in America?
Because the Conservative Party does not make that its mission.
Right, so...
Like, not even officially.
Right? So then why couldn't I just make this argument about China? Well, actually, first off, they do make that. Like, every single party in America thinks that their sole mission is to make America a better place.
No, it's not. That's if you listen to the precepts of the Republican Party in the United States, it's actually not to improve the welfare of the people and serve the people. It's to conserve and preserve. They just disagree
with the ways that you believe.
That's propaganda rhetoric. It's not like inscribed into the mission statement.
Wait a second. Wait, real quick. Let's just settle this and follow this down. What were you gonna say? What were you gonna say, Hans or Haas?
Why are you stopping it?
Wait, because they're saying the same thing.
It was getting.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up, Haas. What were you saying?
Yeah, what I was saying was that the reason why is because the party that is in power within China has as its sole reason for existence and sole purpose for existing serving the Chinese.
No. But you were talking about the Republican Party. So.
Oh yeah, I was basically just trying to say that the Republican Party does not inscribe into the mission statement of its being to serve the people, but rather to conserve the principles of the republic and the values of the American Constitution.
But isn't doing that how they serve the people? Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah.
I don't see how.
Well, they believe it to be the case, no? They believe that enshriving conservative values is how to avoid... Like, for instance, actually, you can break bread with this. You tried to with Lauren Southern, right? You remember? Where you said that, you know, you and a conservative could get along really well, and that you thought that conservatives would really be open to your ideas as a Marxist-Leninist, and that you guys could get along really well. So you already know this. I don't know why you're acting like you don't.
Well, I actually don't think so. There's two different things we're talking about. We're talking about conservatism, like expounded intellectually, and abstractly, and formally in the form of the Republican Party, and everyday American ordinary conservatives. And I don't think those are the two same senses of the word conservative. So when I was talking to Lauren Southern, I was talking about the regular American conservatives, and by conservative I meant Americans who are suspicious of, like, you know, the kind of cultural politics of the Democrats and the extreme kind of changes and government
overreach. Sure, we could talk about that then.
Things like that.
Let's talk about those Republicans. What's stopping me from saying those Republicans have the best interest of the shit in mind?
Because the Republican Party is a party. Are you referring to like
wait, the Communist Chinese Party is a party. What do you mean by that? You have to elaborate.
Yeah, I know, but the Republican Party does not formally or like officially make it its sole purpose for existing just to serve the American people.
They believe that it is. They just go about it in a way that you don't believe is effective for it. So
they may or may not believe that, by the way, but ultimately, because for example, they may say it's not the role of government to serve the people, it's the role of individuals to serve themselves. Government just needs to be a watchdog to make sure that the negative rights of people are guaranteed and respected so that individuals can just look out for them.
But
they could say something like that, right?
But they believe,
and it would be just as consistent.
No. They believe that any excess governmental interference would cause you to have a lower satisfaction or standard of life or standard of living.
No, actually, it's not essentially about the standard of life or even the individual satisfaction. It's about like the fundamental precepts of liberty and freedom and sovereignty.
Why do they care about those precepts? Because they believe it self-actualizes a higher standard of living.
No, because they believe it is like a fundamental kind of like ontological part of what free humanity really is. What it does mean to be free.
And why do they care about free humanity? It's because they believe that maximizes your standard of living.
No, it's not. They no way. Like, they can be objectivist Ayn Rand people and just say, no, we're not being utilitarians or even consequentialists. This is just a matter like of an axiomatic fact of like what it means to be human in the first place. Like, in no way does it necessarily imply the welfare of the people whatsoever.
It does imply the welfare of the people because they believe anything else would be at the detriment of your ability to have a good standard of living. This has been the platform for the
not necessarily. No,
it has
hardcore. There's hardcore libertarians who say we don't actually care about the standard of living. We just care about freedom, and even if that comes at the expense of the standard of living, that's fine.
Why do you think they say that? What is their purpose for saying that?
Because they think principles are more real than human beings.
Why do they think that principle? Wait, what? Wait, what? Okay, so I'm going to give you good faith, and what you mean is that they believe that the principles of what they consider to be freedom is like more important in some cases than certain people's lives. And why do you think that might be the case? Why do you think that they might believe that?
Because for them, those principles represent the truth.
And what is the truth? Itself. And what does the truth do for them?
It doesn't matter what the truth does. It's just a matter of what the truth is. And for them, it's in the form of those principles.
So you're just wrong, right? Libertarians have been on a platform, and it's been very clear that what they have established is these principles uphold the ideas of freedom that are necessary for not only our democracy, but also necessary for self-actualization and the happiness and the productivity.
All libertarians. That's not essentially libertarian.
Most
libertarians.
Okay, can you point me to one person?
You can easily be a libertarian and not believe that. And there are libertarians who don't believe that.
Can you point me to one person who says that their political ideology is to not maximize the benefits or the happiness or the productivity of the general public? And that they're just doing X, Y, and Z political policy because they just don't like people.
Of the mainstream, the core thinkers of the Austrian school, Hans Haberman Hoppe, or whatever the fuck his name is.
Wait, are you talking about
those people
economics
are
now?
Clear about that.
Are you talking about? Wait, are we talking about economics? Did you say austerity?
No, the Austrian school.
Oh,
I know you're like
excuse me.
illiterate.
Okay, I do it. Okay. Anyway, so like, actually, can I get a quote from these people? Like, unironically?
Look, I can try to Google one for you.
Okay.
You could just like not be illiterate.
Good one, bro. Austrian school, it's an economics school? Wait, is it?
The Austrian school isn't just an economics school, it is also a philosophical, it has a lot of philosophical thinkers that orient around it that don't just cover economics.
Oh.
Okay, I'm Googling, and I'm just Googling Hans Hermann Hoppe standard of living, and from the first 2 pages, I mean, like, there's nothing. So you're gonna have to read them yourself, because they're pretty clear about that consistently.
Okay, I mean, I just reject this. I think everybody's political philosophy is all about.
Well, that's just not true.
Okay, I'm asking for one person you can give me an example of. I think everybody's political philosophy stems from the idea that they think it maximizes the positive outcomes inside of society, which does include the welfare of people. I don't think anybody's like pushing a political ideology where they think, yeah, you know what, most people are going to just die from this, and that's and eventually we're going to go extinct, and that's a pretty cool thing.
You do not know hardcore, like super hardcore libertarians from the Austrian school.
Okay, so let me
if we
put
can
it
get
as...
an Austrian, if like a well-read anarcho-capitalist in here, he will literally name you people and give you fucking quotes.
I know a couple anarcho-capitalists. I don't know if he stopped streaming. Last Username was one of them, who literally argued against this his entire career on Twitch, and then I think he stopped streaming.
Ask them, like, do you know of libertarian or Austrian thinkers who make this point? Because I've heard this point before. I've literally, like, heard this point before.
You know what? If you can get me a source that says that, hey, we do not think our ideology... When I asked you for a
source about the WID thing, you said no. You're not going to give me a source.
Right, and I think... Hold on. I think it's fine for you to not give a source here. I don't think that's a terrible thing to do. You can just say that you don't have one.
Okay. So, okay, let's just forget about the source or not, right?
Okay.
Why is it necessary for every single political position to have as its essential basis welfare for society and the people?
In my opinion?
Yeah.
I mean, what else would you have? What other
you could have, for example, a political position that is contrived on the basis of abstract principles that have no regard for the welfare of humanity whatsoever. Now, as to why someone would pursue them, well, it would be because they think there is no alternative, that everything else is like a dead end or false or against the truth. Imagine a religion, for example, that demands everyone die and everyone just commit suicide. Well,
yeah, I don't think these things are widely followed.
And if that religion was expounded into a political program, well, you would have a form of politics that has nothing to do with the welfare of the people at all, but it's just based on...
Is that what you think? Is that what you think the Libertarian Party is a death cult?
No, I don't think that's what it is.
So I'm just...
That's just an extreme example I'm trying to give you. Yeah, not everyone revolves. Now, obviously...
Okay, we're talking about the 99.999 percentile, and the 99.99 percentile do not exist in a death cult.
System in which parties have to gain votes based on appealing to people, almost every single party is going to try to make the case to people that they're going to improve their standard of living and their way of life. But that doesn't mean that they inscribe that as the most fundamental principle or reason for their existence in the first place.
So I would typically argue, from my position, that most people believe that would be the outcome of their political system, is that the people would be better off and and flourish more, even if we could take literal Nazis, for example. Even they believe this. Do you reject that? That like Hitler believed
the
this?
Nazis thought that they were socialists.
Okay, so that's not relevant. What I'm asking you is whether or not
relevant,
what I'm asking you
the Nazis are an
is
example of that.
So,
because they literally claimed that they were socialists, and they literally claimed that they wanted to make a social economy that benefited the German people. So I don't know what you're trying to say.
So what I'm trying to say is very simple. Do you or do you not believe that the Nazi Party or the Third Reich proceeded to try and with their goal was to maximize the well-being of all people, and at the expense of 6 million Jewish people and other countless other people during a war?
Obviously, first of all, they claimed it was for the German people, specifically in the form of the war policy.
Right.
So it's not like the Nazi Germany was like a developmentalist state that focused on uplifting the German people. They focused on aggression against other countries.
Wait, do you think that like China doesn't aggress on other countries?
The linchpin of the China's Communist Party and the China's economy is not war.
Okay, I never said the linchpin. I asked you a very simple question. Do they aggress on other countries?
What's relevant about that?
Okay, I just don't know why, because you previously just stated.
No, I mean, I don't think they do, but what's relevant about that?
So you don't think China aggresses on any other country?
No.
Really?
No, I don't.
Okay, what do you think about their trade relations with like many African countries? Do you think that's a good deal with like many of these?
That's the worst example of
yeah.
aggression.
Do you think that these are good deals, or do you think that many of these countries don't have a way to pay these debts back and get entrapped in debt?
Well, the only thing we would have to see is what would happen if they default, and some of them have defaulted, and China has forgiven their loans and restructured the loans, and cut, like China works with countries that default and can't pay back their debts. So like you just lost on that point. And how is that aggression though? But how is that aggressive? I don't get it. How is that a form of aggression?
Because it's a form of passive imperialism.
Okay, but wait. There's no military involved. There's no politics involved. It's just an economic deal. How is that a form of aggression?
Wait, can I ask? I just want to ask one question just for this comment because I'm super curious. Would you say the same thing? Would you say the same thing about the IMF? Pause.
No.
Why?
Because the IMF, when it comes to giving out its loans and it comes to dealing with countries that default on those loans, the IMF doesn't address the fundamental infrastructural and base economic foundations of the finance. They just treat.
Wait, has China ever done that?
Yes, they have. Actually, yes, they have. China builds infrastructure and attempts to engage in the development of these countries to address.
Wait. When you say builds infrastructure and engage in the development of these countries, you're talking specifically only about ports that also serve the interests of China,
not exclusively ports. There's a train in Kenya that China built. There's
is that train used for shipping like goods and services?
Bro,
I don't know specifically.
Destiny is Mr. Reaching. Are you saying that China exercises soft power compared to the neocon conservatives that go into the Middle East and shit?
China forms deals with sovereign states without violating their sovereignty at all. Simple as that.
It's pretty good.
It's not aggression.
That's not bad, actually. Nice.
Okay, so so then what about its relation with, like, for instance, Hong Kong?
Okay, but you have to understand from the Chinese perspective, Hong Kong is part of the country of China. There's one country, two systems. That's what they say.
Okay, so I'm just curious if anything that happens there you would consider as anything more than, or anything similar to, like, passive imperialism. Is there maybe a little bit more?
Hong Kong is literally part of China.
Okay. Do you think that, like, perhaps waiting for maybe a little bit more of an opportune moment rather than, like, just kind of going in there a little bit earlier than when they're set to be conjoined as one country should be, like, probably a priority?
Wait, when did they go in there?
I mean, like, on the Hong Kong protests? I don't remember the exact date.
Those were dealt with by the Hong Kong police.
So wait, there was no Chinese actors?
I don't know, but it was primarily dealt with by the Hong Kong police.
Okay, so you think that every single person that was being, that had any aggression towards them in Hong Kong that any individual who was inside of that region was not aggravated or assaulted by any individual with Chinese affiliation.
No more than protesters within the United States during Black Lives Matter in Ferguson.
That's not what I asked. That's not what I asked. I asked you a very simple question.
Saying that if they feel discontented, it's not like a Nazi aggression against foreign countries. It's internal to one
I never said it was a Nazi aggression. Just stay on topic.
Well, okay. How did Hong Kong stop being part of China, by the way, in history?
What do you mean?
Like, Hong Kong historically was just China, right? How did it stop being that?
I have no idea.
Really?
Yeah. I have no idea.
Okay. So before Hong Kong was returned to China, what was Hong Kong?
What do you mean? I don't know.
You are okay. So you are a guy who talks about China, but you didn't know that Hong Kong was a British colony.
No.
Okay. And so, what right did Britain have to steal Hong Kong from China? Like Britain is in Europe.
Okay. So sure.
China's in China.
Yep. What
right did Hong Kong have to steal? What right did Britain have to just go to China halfway across the world and say, actually, this is our shit?
I never said that they had a right to do that.
Okay. So I don't understand why there's confusion about who Hong Kong belongs to.
It's not about who Hong Kong belongs to. It's about whether or not there's aggression in the region against the local populace.
The populace being part of China.
Okay, if that was the case, do you think that there's any aggravated aggression in Hong Kong in comparison to any other region in China?
Hong Kong, there was a huge level of civil unrest.
But yeah, why do you think that was? If it's just like any other region in China.
There's the official reason, and then there's the underlying reason. So there's two reasons, right? I'll go over them.
Go for it.
The official reason was because of the extradition law that China was passing that would allow China to extradite criminals from Hong Kong and try them within China, bring them to China. The second reason, and that just goes to show you how hands-off China has been to Hong Kong, even though it's part of its country. It's unheard of that you can't extradite criminals. Like, you can even extradite American criminals from Europe and UK, right?
No, you can't.
The second reason
they can block that. They can block that.
What?
Just to be clear, you can block extradition from the UK to the US.
Okay. Second of all, yeah, but US is one country. The idea, like, you can't extradite someone from Florida, that's like unheard of, right? So the second reason,
hold on, I have a question.
Yeah, hold on, let me finish it. The second reason was that Hong Kong has been giving rise to a lot of economic discontent because there's no land, right? There is land, but it's all monopolized by landlords, and people can't find housing in Hong Kong. There's problems with employment. There's economic discontent.
I was going to ask, you'd rather the Chinese Communist Party squeeze out the bourgeois capitalists in Hong Kong and make it like the rest of China?
Yeah, actually, yes. Within the Communist Party, they literally were talking about how
if Ahrelevant are capitalists, so they got to defend.
Yeah, well, within China, Communist Party. There was talk within the Communist Party that this is by like lower, if not the upper ranks. When people talk about the CCP, you have to understand this is a 90 million member strong organization. So there was a lot of theorists within the party that were saying that if China was allowed to, or if Hong Kong engaged in like a land reform similar to China's in terms of the housing, that it could solve that underlying source of the civil unrest. But China can't do that because it has the one country, two systems policy that doesn't allow China to change Hong Kong's government system and its economic system. So Hong Kong has the government and economic system that it has independently of what the CCP wants.
Damn, capitalists, you got to respond, both of you.
What, just to how like capitalism can solve housing markets and not have them be a big... It can't
in Hong Kong, obviously, because in Hong Kong, people don't have access to housing.
Can you tell me what that means? Like, can you show me, like, is there an unparalleled level of homelessness?
Wait, hold on. Also, just to be clear, I don't have a huge stake in this talking about that, but just to be clear, China has housing problems as well. Yeah.
But the issue specifically in Hong Kong is artificial scarcity of land and housing.
Well, is it artificial scarcity or is it actual scarcity? Because my understanding is that China has had problems recently where like these huge cities like
Yeah, the demolition
have-
of the
because people don't want to live there.
No. It's not because people didn't want to live there. It's because they found at the base of the buildings they were contaminated by what is it called when water like rots the foundation
Mildew?
and it
Mold?
becomes unsafe
Mildew or
according to their
mold?
standards. Well, anyway, those buildings were not safe. Ghost cities are actually a myth. So they look like ghost cities because it takes years and years for them to get populated, but they eventually do become populated, and there's many cases that you can observe of these things that were called ghost cities by the Western press. Years and years later, they're all of a sudden completely populated because they just didn't understand the long-term plan for these cities. But anyway, even if that was a problem, it's the opposite problem that Hong Kong has. In that case, there's like an abundance of cities, but they're just not affordable, right? But in Hong Kong, there's an artificial scarcity of housing and land because there's a huge monopoly by landlords within Hong Kong.
Do you think that the
people are packed like sardines? The living conditions in terms of housing are just not good. Rent prices are super, super high, like skyrocketed high. So, yeah, this housing situation in Hong Kong is really not good.
So
I have seen no evidence to that.
Let's say China did, get Hong Kong fully, on their side. What would that mean for like the small business owner? Would they flourish right away, or?
The small business owner would undoubtedly benefit a lot.
Okay,
Are you
no, hold
counting,
on.
or
I'm not gonna.
No,
we're not gonna meet with this. Okay, I just want to ask a couple more questions because we kind of derailed a bit. All right. Do you believe that which one do you believe is more truthful? Chinese sources when it comes to their state information, or we'll just use Western sources broadly when it comes to information disseminated by them, and when it comes to world news?
Chinese sources.
Okay. Can you tell me where China believes that the coronavirus came from?
Officially speaking,
Yep.
it seems like China is not fully aware, but the scientific community within China has kind of reached a vague and broad consensus that it has its origins in, in the natural world, that it wasn't like man-made.
Okay. So, where do you believe the coronavirus came from?
I have no idea.
You have no opinion on where the coronavirus came from?
I have no idea.
So if I made the claim it came from a lab in Wuhan, you would say, well, that's equally as plausible as anything else?
I would have to evaluate the claim based on its merits.
Okay. If I made that claim, then evaluate the claim on its merits.
Okay, why do you think it came from Wuhan?
No, I'm just, let's say that I make that claim. What do you think
Trump
about that?
said so.
Yeah. So,
Well,
like, for instance, this is a pretty...
making the claim, right? If I don't know something and you make a claim, I have to know why you're making it.
Well, let's just say that I think that there's Chinese evidence or documentation that shows that to be the case.
Okay, well, I need to see the same thing you're looking at if you want me to arrive at the same conclusion as you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. Okay, so what about the Chinese officials that are stating that the coronavirus came from U.S. troops instead of a base in Maryland?
Yeah, I mean...
Do you deny that they exist?
No, I don't. I'm saying I think that's interesting. Like,
Okay, do you deny that they've doubled down on this claim? Wait,
They could be right.
Oh, okay.
They could be right.
Wait,
Is there
how
any
the
evidence
fuck-
for this claim?
Yeah, I have seen stuff. I have the Fort Detrick stuff. I have seen stuff that's like super kind of sus.
Really? Like what?
I think it should be investigated.
Let everybody know. What do you think that you've seen that's pretty sus about it?
They shut it down years ago, some shit like that. I just think it should be investigated. That's all.
Okay, hold on. What have you seen that's sus?
I don't remember exactly, but it should be investigated.
Okay. So it has been. It has been looked into.
I remember reading about it.
Yeah, so just so you know, it has been.
But I do remember reading about it.
Just so you know, it has been.
Coming to the conclusion.
Yeah, it seems to be
interesting, and it deserves more of my attention.
So which one do you? It has been looked into. So do you think that, like, maybe not to your level of scrutiny, but do you believe that China state officials pushing this idea probably leans towards the idea that maybe Western sources are a little bit more reliable when it comes to information about the coronavirus?
You mean
No.
like?
Why not?
Well, I don't think the origins of the coronavirus are decided yet.
Ahrelevant,
I don't think that they're decided either, but we can throw away or dismiss some ideas based on the amount of evidence that we have right now.
I mean,
I can't.
Ahrelevant, would you trust the sources of the fake weapons of mass destruction that the U.S. pushed?
So yeah, that came from the state itself, right? And yeah, I know,
And the
obviously
media.
not. Well, in the media propagated it from the
But
state,
Yahaz,
sure. But
that's a little unfair. For when he asked you about China, you're like, I don't know where the virus came from. And then when he pushed that, oh, maybe it came from the West, you're like, that's interesting. Why don't you just say, I don't know for both?
Here's why. Because I don't know for both, but barely anyone talks about the Fort Detrick thing compared to the Wuhan Lab leak.
okay,
I
so
just think it
hold
deserves
on,
investigation
and that's
more
because
attention.
you are in America. Okay, there is quite a bit of chatter and state propaganda that is pushed talking about this from China, and that's why I talked about this. Okay, so I'm trying to ask to you that do you think that, for instance, the idea that it was a naturally made virus has the same level of evidence as the evidence about it coming from a military base, a U.S. military base in Maryland?
I have no idea.
Okay.
And I actually don't think Chinese officials definitively said it came from there. I just think they said it's like, this was sus and it deserves to be investigated.
And it has been. It has been looked into.
Okay, was that before or after they asked for it to be?
It was after, because nobody was propagating
So
such
why
a
are you bringing
wild
it up?
conspiracy. Because they doubled down on it after it got looked into. They doubled down on it
well,
last
I would
month.
have to look at both sides and why both sides are saying what they're saying.
Okay. So I'm just curious then why you're so, like, I guess, willing to take this bit of information. Like, why, in what world do you think it's realistic that this could be the case, given the investigations that have been conducted?
Because I haven't looked at those investigations and evaluated them independently.
Okay. Can you, like, state to me that, like, perhaps you will, and then we could get back, and then we could have a conversation about that?
I mean, I could, but what's your point? What point are you trying
My
to get
whole
into?
point that I'm making is there's an international consensus that this isn't the case, right? And China's pushing a very specific
Wait, what
idea.
international consensus?
Every single person that I have seen cover this in their entirety have denied the claim, except for China. I've not seen,
Okay, hold
seen
on.
a
Wait,
single
hold on,
country
hold on.
that does it.
When you
Maybe
say
there's some.
international, what countries are you referring to?
Careful, don't say NATO.
So I'm referring to Western countries, if that's what you're
Yeah.
getting at,
Oh,
as
oh,
well.
So okay, so if we go by population, there's more people within China than the entire Western world.
That's not true. What are you including as the Western world?
Europe and America?
Does that include Eastern Europe?
No, Western Europe.
Okay. So roughly, there is. Do you include Canada?
Yeah.
Okay. So roughly speaking, there's probably. I mean, it's pretty comparable. There's probably what, close to 1.1 billion. So yeah, you'd be right at that if you don't include like other areas of Europe. Sure. So what does this have to do with anything, though?
It's interesting how you're saying like internationally, but you're referring to like one geopolitical bloc.
Do you think that China has any invested interest in saying that it didn't come from their country?
I know, but you're not including India. You're not including the Muslim world. You're not including Russia.
Wait, do you
you're not
think?
including
Wait, do you think
Africa.
India claims that it came from a base in Maryland?
No, I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, I could look into that.
I don't think so. I don't think they would have a reason.
All right,
to.
so I'm just asking you, some pretty simple questions on this.
Yeah.
So I'm just.
Well, here's the
yeah.
thing. Just because China has a vested interest, like having a vested interest can also mean you can reveal truths that no one else has any interest in revealing.
Okay, if that's true, then why are you complaining, or not complaining, excuse me, because you had issues with that. Why are you worried whenever America has invested interest in keeping certain information in a specific way? But you're not
Yeah,
worried when China
if
does.
you're
When you
trying to
talk about
like,
Chinese
why am I
invested
worried
interest,
about
it's different.
Western biases and sources, because as I've said, I've never dismissed a source just because it was Western. I only talk about the fact that it's a Western bias and Western source because you seem to just trust the veracity of sources, even when the evidence and the primary evidence they are referring to justify the conclusions they come to is faulty.
Can you give me an example of the West, by and large, lying about a given claim, and then China making an accurate claim in contradiction
Weapons
to
of mass destruction
the integrity
in
of the West?
Yeah, weapons of mass destruction in Iraq.
Okay, sure. I don't know about the validity to that specific claim. Do you have any other one?
Okay.
How about the journalists that are killed inside of China as a result of what they post?
Okay, which ones?
Okay, I don't have names for you readily available, but do you believe...
Okay, you want to investigate it and get back to me?
No. I'll just ask you this question because I think we can be in good faith. Do you think that any journalist in China has been killed or disappeared for any kind of involvement that they've had with kind of putting out ideas or statements that are counterintuitive to the state interests?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay, so you're of the statement that you don't think so?
No.
Okay. So if I could get you information on that, you would look into that?
Yeah.
Okay.